I'll never forget the day my daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eye, smirked, and called me trash. The word still rings in my ears, like a cruel echo. Trash. Disposable. Worthless. Like I was no longer a mother, no longer a woman who had lived, worked, sacrificed, and raised a family. In her eyes, I was nothing more than a burden, to be discarded. Now, let me ask you something. What would you do if someone, not just anyone, but your own daughter-in-law, dismissed your entire existence with one word? Would you stay silent? Would you swallow it? Or would you, like me, decide that one day, somehow, you'd make sure they saw the truth about themselves? You see, words have power. And when someone you love uses them to cut you down, they don't just wound, they ignite something deep inside you. A fire you didn't even know was there. That insult wasn't just a casual slip of the tongue. It was a declaration of war. But before I tell you how I turned that insult into the lesson of a lifetime, let me take you back to the beginning. Because in every story like this, there are cracks, long before the collapse. And if you pay attention closely, you'll see the warning signs, the ones most people ignore, until it's too late. My son has always been the center of my world. I raised him through storms and sunshine, through days when there was barely enough food on the table, and nights when I worked 2 jobs, just so he wouldn't go to bed hungry. I gave him everything I had, time, energy, even pieces of myself I didn't think I could spare. So when he grew up, found a career, and finally told me he'd met the woman he wanted to marry, I was overjoyed. Like any mother, I prayed she would love him, respect him, and maybe, just maybe, embrace me as part of her family too. But life doesn't always give us the storybook ending we dream about, does it? From the very first time I met her, I noticed something in her eyes. A sharpness. A calculation. She was polite enough, at least in front of my son, but behind the pleasantries I felt it. The subtle rejection. The way she sized me up, as though I were competition, rather than kin. At first, I brushed it aside. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe I was reading too much into it. After all, isn't that what mothers often do? We doubt our instincts. We silence our suspicions, because we want peace more than we want to be right. But deep down, I knew this woman didn't see me as family. She saw me as an obstacle. And that became clearer with every passing month. Little comments slipped out, disguised as jokes. Oh, your mom still cooks like it's the 1950s. Or, do we really need to invite her to everything? She laughed. My son laughed too. But I felt the sting each time, death by 1,000 cuts. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself, it's not worth causing trouble. Don't make your son choose sides. That's what mothers do, right? We sacrifice even our dignity to protect the ones we love. But silence doesn't protect you forever. Eventually, silence becomes permission. And then came the moment that changed everything. It was a family gathering. My son, my daughter-in-law, and a few friends. I had brought over a homemade dish, one I'd spent the whole morning preparing. The room was buzzing with chatter, laughter, the clinking of glasses. For a moment, it almost felt normal, almost felt like I belonged. Then, she said it. She wrinkled her nose, looked at me, and in front of everyone, she let the word roll off her tongue like poison. Why do you even bother? You're just trash. The laughter died. The room froze. My son looked at her, then at me, but said nothing. Nothing. Do you know what that feels like? To be humiliated, torn down, and abandoned all at once? It's like being stabbed, and then realizing the person you thought would defend you is just standing there, watching you bleed. But here's the thing about pain. Sometimes, it wakes you up. And in that moment, as I sat there with everyone's eyes burning into me, I made a silent promise. She thought she had destroyed me with that word. She thought she had reduced me to nothing. But what she didn't know was that she had lit a fire inside me that would one day expose her for who she really was. Because let me tell you something. When you call someone trash, you're not defining them, you're defining yourself. And soon enough, The whole world would see her for what she really was. But I didn't rush. No. Revenge, real revenge, is never impulsive. It's patient. It's deliberate. It waits for the perfect moment to strike. And as I sat there, quietly swallowing the insult, pretending not to care, I already knew my time was coming. People often assume that betrayals happen suddenly, like a lightning strike splitting the sky. But the truth? They creep in slowly, like water seeping through the cracks of a foundation. You don't notice it at first, a little dampness here, a small stain there, until one day, the entire structure collapses, and you're left wondering how long the damage had been building right under your nose. That's exactly what life with my daughter-in-law felt like. From the outside, everything looked perfect. My son had a good job, they had a beautiful home, and they looked like the picture of a happy couple. People envied them. And me? I was supposed to feel lucky, grateful even, that my son had married such a modern, charming woman. But behind closed doors, the truth was nothing like the fairy tale. You see, disrespect doesn't always announce itself with a bang. Sometimes, it's quiet, almost invisible, at least to those who don't want to see it. It shows up in the way someone sighs when you enter a room, in the way they roll their eyes when you speak. In this way your presence suddenly feels like an inconvenience, instead of a blessing. My daughter-in-law was a master at it. She never attacked me outright, not at first, not in front of my son. Instead, she laid her traps in whispers and sideways glances. If I offered to help in the kitchen, she'd smile tightly and say, "Oh, don't trouble yourself, you'll just get in the way." If I tried to share an old family recipe with her, she'd laugh and say, "We don't really eat that kind of food anymore." Little by little, she chipped away at my place in my own son's life. And little by little, I felt myself becoming a guest in a world I had helped build. Now, don't get me wrong. I tried to bridge the gap. I told myself, maybe she was insecure. Maybe she just needed time. I brought her gifts, small things I thought she might appreciate. I complimented her, praised her cooking even when it was bland compared to what she criticized of mine. I bent myself in every possible way, hoping she'd see I wasn't a threat, just a mother trying to belong. But here's the problem. Some people don't want bridges. They want walls. And every time I tried to reach across, she built her wall higher. And my son? My sweet, oblivious son, he didn't see it. Or maybe, he didn't want to. He was caught in the glow of love, blind to the shadows lurking behind it. When I hinted at the things she said, he brushed it off. "Mom, you're overthinking. She doesn't mean it like that." When I admitted I felt pushed aside, he reassured me. "She's just stressed, Mom. Give her time." But time didn't soften her edges. It sharpened them. One memory stands out vividly. It was their anniversary dinner. I had saved up to buy them a beautiful gift, a framed family portrait of my son as a child. Something sentimental, something that carried history, roots, love. When I gave it to them, my son's face lit up. But hers. She looked at the picture, then at me, and I swear I saw something flicker in her eyes. Annoyance. Almost hatred. Later that night, I overheard her mutter under her breath, when she thought I wasn't listening, "Why does she keep clinging? Can't she see this is our life now?" That's when I knew. It wasn't just dislike. It wasn't just tension. She wanted me gone. Out of their lives. Erased like a mistake. Treated like, well, like trash. But here's the thing. When someone tries that hard to erase you, it usually says more about them than it does about you. And I began to notice something. For all her sharpness, for all her cruelty, she had cracks too. Cracks she thought she was hiding. Cracks I filed away in the back of my mind, knowing that someday, those weaknesses would matter. Because while she thought she was pushing me down, she was really giving me everything I'd need to stand taller than ever. And isn't it ironic? Sometimes, the very people who call you worthless are the ones carrying secrets so heavy, they are destined to collapse under them. But at that time, I stayed quiet. I endured. Because I knew her true self would eventually come out, And when it did, I'd be ready. Every story has that one moment when everything changes. When the whispers become shouts. When the cracks split wide open. When the insult that's been bubbling beneath the surface finally bursts into daylight. For me, that moment came on a day that was supposed to be about family, unity, and love. It was my granddaughter's birthday. I had been looking forward to it for weeks. Birthdays, you see, were always sacred to me. No matter how tough life got, I made sure my son's birthdays were special when he was little. There were years I couldn't afford gifts, but I'd bake cakes from scratch, decorate the house with paper ribbons, and fill the room with laughter. So naturally, I wanted to bring that same warmth to my granddaughter. That morning, I rose early, baked her favorite chocolate cake, and wrapped a gift I'd saved up for, a handmade doll with a dress I'd sewn myself. Every stitch carried love, patience, the kind of care you don't buy in stores. It was my way of saying, you matter, you're loved, you belong. When I arrived at their house, the place was buzzing. Children running, balloons floating, music playing. My granddaughter spotted me and came running, her little arms wrapping tight around my waist. For a moment, the world was perfect. Her smile told me I was still needed, still wanted. But then, my daughter-in-law appeared. She was dressed immaculately, of course, hair flawless, jewelry sparkling, that carefully curated smile plastered across her face. But her eyes, they told the truth. Cold, calculating. And in that moment, I knew she was about to make a scene. I handed the gift to my granddaughter, who squealed with joy. But before she could tear the wrapping open, my daughter-in-law snatched it away. Not now, she said sharply. We don't need clutter. Clutter. That's what she called the doll I had poured my heart into. The room grew quiet. Guests looked on, unsure what to do. My son shifted uncomfortably, but once again, he said nothing. Nothing. His silence was a wound deeper than any word. I tried to swallow the hurt, but she wasn't finished. As the children gathered for the birthday photo, I stood beside my granddaughter, ready to be part of the memory. A simple photograph. A family moment. But then, in front of everyone, my daughter-in-law raised her voice. Could you move, please? We don't need extras in this picture. Extras. Trash. Clutter. Different words, same meaning. I froze. The sting of humiliation burned through me as I realized what she had done. Not just pushing me aside, but erasing me. Declaring to everyone in that room that I was nothing. Disposable. A shadow in my own family. And this time, there was no mistaking the silence. It wasn't awkward or uncertain. It was complicated. People avoided my eyes. My son stared at the ground. No one spoke up for me. No one. Do you know what that does to a person? To stand in a room full of people you love and feel invisible? It's like dying while still breathing. Like watching yourself fade in real time. But here's the secret no one knew. As much as it hurt, as much as it carved deep into me, it didn't break me. No. It crystallized me. Because humiliation is powerful. It can crush you, or it can forge you. And in that moment, I decided I would never again beg for a place in my own family. If they wanted me gone, if she wanted me erased, then fine. I'd step aside. But not in defeat. I'd step aside to prepare. To plan. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting back. It isn't fighting at the moment. It's letting the world believe you're weak, invisible, discarded, until the day you return, not broken, but stronger than ever. And trust me, that day was coming. I smiled that day. Yes, I smiled as I walked away from the camera, as though her words hadn't gutted me. I smiled as though I didn't notice the whispers, the sideways glances. Because I wanted her to think she'd won. That I had finally accepted my place as nothing. But deep inside, I was already writing the next chapter. And little did she know, the very stage she used to humiliate me would become the same stage where her true self would be exposed. Because life has a funny way of turning the tables. When someone humiliates you, your first instinct is to strike back. To shout. to defend, to tear them down the way they tore you down. But that's not strength, that's impulse. Real strength is in patience, in silence, in letting them think they've won, while you quietly sharpen your weapons. That day at the birthday party, when she shoved me out of the photo and called me extra, I walked away smiling. But inside, I was already plotting. And let me tell you, there is nothing more dangerous than a woman who has been underestimated. I started watching her more closely after that. Listening. Observing. Because the thing about cruel people is, they always slip. They leave crumbs behind. Tiny details that reveal who they really are. And once you spot the cracks, you realize how fragile their power really is. She loved appearances. That much was clear. To the outside world, she was the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect woman who had it all together. But behind the scenes, she was obsessed with gossip, with envy, with showing off things she didn't really have. She wore expensive clothes, but whispered complaints about money. She posted pictures of family unity online, while secretly pushing me out of the frame. And that was the first clue, image. She cared more about how things looked than how they really were. So I asked myself, what happens when someone who worships appearances is stripped bare for all to see? What happens when the mask is ripped away? That became my focus. I wouldn't shout. I wouldn't fight her in her home, or in private. No. I would let the world see her true face. The one she tried so hard to hide. But to do that, I had to be patient. I had to let her guard drop. Let her think I had accepted my role as trash. And oh, how easily she believed it. Every family dinner after that, I stayed quiet. I smiled. I let her little jabs pass. Oh, don't worry, she doesn't understand these things. She's old-fashioned, just ignore her. Each insult slid over me like water on stone. Outwardly, I looked weak. Inside, I was gathering everything. Every word. Every moment. Every slip of her mask. Because here's the thing, arrogance blinds people. She thought she was untouchable. She thought I was powerless. And in her arrogance, she started to expose herself without even realizing it. I noticed how she treated the housekeeper when she thought no one was listening. Sharp words, demeaning tones. I saw the way she lied to my son about money, hiding her spending behind excuses. I even caught her flirting too closely with a man at a family event, though she brushed it off as just being friendly. Every time I saw it, I tucked it away. A puzzle piece. A breadcrumb. A weapon waiting for its moment. And then came the opportunity one had been waiting for. It was another family event, bigger this time. Extended relatives, family friends, even neighbors. The kind of gathering where appearances mattered most. Where she would be on her best behavior, parading herself as the perfect woman. But here's the thing about masks, they don't last long under pressure. And I was ready to apply pressure. I had prepared carefully, quietly. I had gathered little stories, whispers, truths about her behavior. I had spoken, subtly, to people she had wronged, the housekeeper she mistreated, a friend she'd betrayed, even a neighbor she had once gossiped about. Nothing loud, nothing direct. Just small conversations. Quiet nods. Little seeds planted. By the time that family event arrived, the ground was already fertile. All it needed was a spark. And trust me, I was ready to strike the match. The night of the gathering, I walked into the house not as a victim. Not as trash. Not as an extra. I walked in as a woman who knew the truth. Who held the kind of power my daughter-in-law never expected me to have. She thought I was invisible. That was her mistake. Because invisibility is a gift. When no one sees you, no one sees what you're planning. The house was glowing with lights, laughter echoing from every room. People were dressed in their best. And there she was, my daughter-in-law, floating around like the queen of the evening, glass of wine in hand, a smile plastered across her face, basking in the admiration. To everyone there, she looked flawless. To me, she looked hollow. Because I knew what was hiding beneath that smile. and I was about to show everyone the real picture. It started small, a whispered comment here, a subtle reminder there. I leaned close to one of the neighbors and said, "Funny thing. Did you know she once told me you complained about her garden being messy?" His eyebrows shot up, seed planted. Later, I nudged a family friend and mentioned, "She once bragged about buying that handbag with money she told my son she was saving." Another seed. By the time dinner was served, the cracks had already begun. People were glancing at her differently. Whispers hummed beneath the clinking of glasses. But the real strike came later, when the moment she had been waiting for, the family toast and photo, arrived. Everyone gathered around. Glasses were raised. She was glowing under the spotlight, ready to deliver her carefully rehearsed toast. And that's when I did it. I stood up, calmly, my voice steady, and said, "Before we raise our glasses, I want to say something. Because family is about truth, isn't it? About honesty, respect, and love." The room went quiet. All eyes turned to me. My son's face tightened with worry. My daughter-in-law's smile froze on her lips. I looked straight at her and continued, "There are some people who wear masks, who calls others trash, clutter, extras, when in reality, the only garbage in the room is the lies they tell, the cruelty they hide, and the disrespect they think no one sees." Gasps rippled through the crowd. She tried to interrupt, but I raised my hand. "Do you want to know what real trash looks like? It looks like belittling your housekeeper when no one is around. It looks like lying about money while pretending you're a perfect wife. It looks like pushing a grandmother out of her granddaughter's birthday photo, because you're afraid of being overshadowed by love you can never control." The room erupted in murmurs. Eyes shifted from her to me, then back to her. Her mask cracked right there in front of everyone. She stammered, tried to laugh it off, but the whispers wouldn't stop. People had already seen enough of her slips, already noticed her arrogance. All I had done was shine a light on it. And my son, oh, my son. For the first time, his eyes opened. He looked at me, then at her, and I saw the truth finally land. His silence, all those years, shattered in that one instant. She stormed out, of course. The perfect image she'd worked so hard to build collapsed like a house of cards. And me? I stayed, calm, steady, sipping my glass of water while everyone else tried to make sense of what had just happened. Because revenge isn't about screaming. It isn't about rage. It's about timing. It's about letting the truth speak for itself. In the one moment your enemy thought they had the most control. That was the night the world saw the real picture. Not the smiling mask she posted online. Not the polished persona she paraded in public. The real her. Petty, cruel, insecure, exposed. And I wasn't trash. I was the mirror. And she hated what she saw in it. Now let me ask you, the ones listening to my story, how many of you have been silenced, dismissed, erased? How many of you have been told you were worthless, only to find out the person insulting you was really projecting their own emptiness? If you've ever been called names, pushed aside, or made to feel invisible, remember this: you are not the insult. You are not the trash. You are the mirror that shows people exactly who they are when they try to tear others down. So don't rush to fight back. Don't waste your strength screaming into deaf ears. Wait. Watch. Let them believe they've won. And when the time is right, let the truth speak louder than anything you could have shouted. Because truth always finds its voice. And when it does, it's louder than any insult.